Well, here we are, Gavin, back for episode number 2 of the B-Main, and it has been 2 weeks, but it has been a chaotic 2 weeks in the racing world because, man, we had the Clash go on last night. We had a lot of stuff go on with super late models in the dirt world, as well as we had super late models in the asphalt world back at Cordele. And so then we had what over at Kern, we had the super late models out there with the Cars Tour West series, as well as ARCA Menards West. We got an interview tonight with a special guest, Austin Beers, a driver in the Whelen Modified Tour series and the Smart Tour series, a good friend of yours. And then we've got the Rolex 24 review and the Daytona 500 preview. A lot to cover tonight in episode number 2 of the B-Man, Gavin.
When you say there is a lot to cover, Scott, these last 2 weeks, you went through and named it, and I feel like we are getting everybody excited, but you didn't even touch the tip of the iceberg of so many things that happened. There was controversy at Daytona between BMW and Corvette. A car caught on fire down in Needmore at the Lucas Oil race. I mean, just so much is going on in this short amount of time that's not even going to cover all the action that happened at Bowman Gray.
Yeah, I know, and that there's a lot of stuff that we're going to get to talk about, and let's get right into it. The Bowman Gray, everything that went on, the Clash at Bowman Gray, and oh my gosh, did it live up to its name. Personally, I thought it was great. I mean, first of all, we had the Madhouse Classic, and that was the modifieds that race there all the time. It was an invitational, actually, I learned, and so a lot of drivers that race at Bowman Gray were invited based off of standings or wins and a lot of recent things, but it was quite a race because we saw John Holloman. I know that you watched it. We saw him leading for quite a while, but then him and Bone, they got into each other and they had a lot of contact. And we saw the first instance of the Madhouse. We saw Bone get down to the inside of John Holloman and absolutely send him down into the wall in turn 2.
Oh, yeah. And the contact really resulted off the safer barrier, off of turn 4 there, and the wall on the football stadium sticks out, and then when NASCAR comes in, they have to run a safer barrier to all NASCAR tracks. So adding that extra probably 3 or 4 feet to squeeze the track even smaller, that's something these drivers aren't used to, and the aggression that was already higher because it's Bowman Gray, and you kind of have to move or be moved. So in that instance, it just ramped it up even more, and that was kind of one of the big stories of the Clash is that turn 4 wall and some of the contact that it led to in the modified race before in the Madhouse Classic and during the Clash both nights.
Yeah, we saw a lot with that turn 4 wall. We know that the stadium jets out right there in the track, and so they've bent the wall. And honestly, a lot of people said that NASCAR did an excellent job with that safer barrier and keeping the culture and character of the racetrack, especially on those corners there on the exit of turn number 4 and entry to turn number 3. So a lot of people said that NASCAR did a great job with those walls. Last things, the Madhouse Classic, we saw Ryan Preece. He went out midway through the race after he had to check up, and Bobby Labonte tractor-trailered over him while they were actually battling for position. So Ryan Preece, a known well-off driver in the modifieds, did not have the day end how he wanted to at the Madhouse Classic.
Yeah, I think he ended up with damage in both races. I mean, you go back and look at the Clash, and that turn 4 wall that we just talked about kind of knocked the toe out in the back of the car, and he rode around near the second half of the pack the whole mid to late section of the race.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot, and that was only the first instance of the day. Then we got into NASCAR. We got the Gen 7s back on track, and so we had them for the heats and the LCQ. And oh my gosh, Gavin, did we have calamity. I mean, I thought the Madhouse Classic was wild until we saw the heat races in the LCQ. On Saturday night, we saw, Justin Haley and Kyle Busch were absolutely bullying each other. And then we saw, who else? I mean, it was, Justin Haley was getting into somebody else. It was Ty Gibbs.
Ty Gibbs just absolutely came unglued, had what I call a crash out moment, as the kids are calling it these days, and he just drives up behind Haley in retaliation and kind of squares up on his left rear or on his right rear with Ty's left front and jets up into the air. And what's funny is I saw a meme someone made. It had the Lightning McQueen face. So
That's exactly. I was just about to say that.
Through the air, and he had that over Ty Gibbs's front bumper. And I just really thought that image told you everything you need to know about the clash this weekend, both nights. And then I think that was during the LCQ, actually.
Yeah, that was a crazy moment that we saw between them. And yeah, I was literally about to say it. I saw that exact same thing, I think today, and I thought it was hilarious. Viewers, if you see me wincing at all, I was actually in the gym today, and I don't know what I did to my neck, but I definitely messed it up, Gavin. So if you see me doing something like this, it's me wincing in pain, but I'll be okay. We want to get you the B main as fresh and as fast as possible, especially after all this action that we had this weekend. Yeah, we talked about the LCQ. We saw Burt Myers and Ricky Stenhouse make heavy contact, and Burt Myers actually was out of the race after that contact.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially the fans there, kind of wanted to blame that one on Ricky Stenhouse, and after our discussion in the last episode about Stenhouse making some interesting decisions.
I was going to say, he's made headlines in both of our episodes.
I mean, Stenhouse is so far the sweetheart of the B main, and what's funny is this happened in an LCQ, but when you go back and watch the fans' angle of it, where you saw a video that fans taken, I think they were setting in, looked like turn one, and Burt Myers pretty much drove straight across the track and clipped Stenhouse in the front, and because it's, the hometown guy and NASCAR wants a story and, you want to play into your fans. NASCAR on Fox kind of made it seem like Stenhouse wrecked him, but when you go back and look, I think Burt Myers kind of did it to himself. And I'm not going to say he's a bad driver because, look at all the track championships he's got. He's got a
definitely
12. Him and Tim Brown have combined for 23 track championships at Bowman Gray? It's ridiculous.
Yes.
You know these guys are good, and they were racing toe-to-toe with the Cup Series drivers, so not to take anything away from him, but I don't think the move is actually as bad on Stenhouse as some people want it to be.
No, I 100% agree with you. I really thought the same thing, and it was honestly really frustrating because I think we saw a lot of guys in these NASCAR heats and even the race. We saw them. You had to get to the bottom. Obviously, the Cup cars could definitely handle the top a lot better than the modifieds, but still
starts though.
Yeah,
it seemed like after 3 or 4 laps, the bottom would finally take control. But I think it may have just been on those initial restarts where out of turn 2, the high line was carrying so much more momentum.
Yeah, it was more viable than a lot of people thought it would be. We saw Noah Gragson make a huge move. Dude, 3 wide on the outside, and he made it stick, and that was pretty impressive. But I was really upset when I saw Burt Myers going to the wall because I think, obviously, I haven't watched a lot of races at Bowman Gray, but I felt like a fan, like just a fan of the Madhouse, because I was like, he was working his way up through the field. He started 15th in that LCQ. He was up to 8th when he was battling with Stenhouse. So I really believe if he would have been able to stay in this race, there might have been a possibility that he could have been fighting for one of those 2 transfer spots.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but you just got to look at how that race was going. It was survival of the fittest, but once that middle part of the pack, that's where you don't survive. And I really think if you're not way out front or way in the back, you're not going to survive any race at Bowman Gray, no matter what class of car is on the track.
Yeah, well, we'll never know, and that's the sad part because I really wanted to see if it was possible because, him and Tim Brown were there back in 19th and 15th, but Tim Brown really wasn't able to go anywhere. But again, Burt Myers started to work through the field. He talked about in his interview that he was clipping them off one by one, and so I really would have loved to see how far and how close to the front that he could have gotten. And so that was a lot of your stuff in your heats and your LCQ. But I honestly thought they were some of the most exciting because, oh my gosh, I honestly really thought what we saw in the heats and the LCQ, I thought was an excellent representation of the Madhouse and the racing that people see there.
No, it was a great thing for the fans, great race. I actually talked to you the other day that I kind of had my doubts about the Clash. I didn't think it was going to be a bad race. I just didn't know how I felt about the Clash. I mean, it was a great thing for the fans, great racing. I actually talked to you the other day that I kind of had my doubts about the Clash. I didn't think it was going to be a bad race. I just didn't know how I felt about the Clash. I didn't think it was going to be a bad race. I just didn't know how I felt about the Clash being at Bowman Gray and the All-Star Race being at North Wilkesboro. I just wasn't sure how I felt about those two, both exhibitions, both being in North Carolina. I kind
So
of feel
why do you feel that way?
okay, the All-Star Race at North Wilkesboro is awesome. And the Clash at Bowman Gray is awesome. We can agree that both races are great, right?
Definitely, absolutely.
Okay, why have the Clash and All-Star Race both serve the same purpose? Because to me, the All-Star Race is the time to give back to your hardcore fans. And that is the
Okay.
middle of the season. Let the drivers kind of get some frustration out on a short track with no consequences. To me,
Okay.
the Clash needs to be a destination race. Go somewhere warm. Introduce it to new fans before the season and see how many of those fans we can retain. Go to a street circuit. Go somewhere warm. Make something new happen for the Clash. The All-Star race should be tradition. The Clash should be experimental. I don't think any two races should serve the same purpose. I don't even like going to the same track twice, really, unless it's Daytona, Darlington, or Bristol, because those are the tracks that we've always gone to twice and have honestly are a crown jewel event anytime we're on the track.
Yeah, honestly, now that you say it, I do think you make a great point because NASCAR has continued to slowly grow over the past couple of years. But I think this is definitely one thing where they could say, okay, this could be a time where obviously we need to give back to our roots, to our home. And I think that was a great representation like we see at North Wilkesboro and what we saw at the Clash. But I think you make a great point in that these two events can serve the. Yeah, yeah, and I will say I definitely do agree with that, and definitely can see how NASCAR could maybe where they can go from here with that, because I think I would definitely say that I agree. I just don't know how they would do that in terms of continuing to expand this.
I mean, I think make North Wilkesboro a point race would be the first way to go about it. That way, we have
Yes.
North Wilkesboro as one. And then let's say we move the All-Star race to Bowman Gray, and then the Clash, we can go to a destination. Then we have North Wilkesboro and Bowman Gray both, and we get to go somewhere new.
There we go. You heard it here first from Gavin Grubbs, and I honestly wholeheartedly agree with that because I love the racing. What?
But of course, like every other fan, I think that if I ran NASCAR, I could do the best job of anybody, but I think everyone thinks that. So I'm not going to go ahead and talk too much.
Hey, look, we all have an opinion, and that's what we're here for at the B-Main. This is all about opinions and just really fact-finding. But honestly, we saw that, and then we saw the Clash itself. It was a fairly calm race. Blaney goes all the way from 23rd all the way to 2nd and chases down Chase Elliott, but was not able to make the pass. And meanwhile, Chase Elliott leads 171 laps, the most in Clash history, and goes on to win.
Yeah, to me, Chase Elliott almost stunk up the show, and I like Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's a great driver, and he deserved that. But to have all of that action in the LCQ, to have two great heat races and two not bad heat races, the whole weekend I thought was great. And then Chase Elliott goes and leads almost every lap, which I'm not taking away success from anybody. Everybody likes seeing greatness. Greatness is great for a reason. But it almost felt a little bit like what Patrick Mahomes is doing to the NFL right now.
Yeah, and I definitely cannot disagree with you there because I definitely thought in terms of excitement and race content, I definitely thought that we got a lot more from the heats and the LCQs. And I think that's just because there was so much on the line. You wanted to make the show, all these drivers, we heard it from Austin Dillon and others, who were, very sentimental about Bowman Gray. We heard how much they wanted to be a part of the 200 lap feature. And so they all had something to fight for. But, once you got into the race, obviously as a driver, you always want to win. But I mean, this isn't a points race. There's no big payout, none of that. I mean, it's just once you're in the race, you're in the race.
And that's what I kind of liked about. I'm going to compare this more to an all-star race than more to clashes in the past, because the Clash has always been at Daytona, except for the 2 years it wasn't. And maybe have an invert of the top 10, maybe invert the whole field, but if you win both stages, you get a double payout or something. It's the Clash. There's no points. It's for the fans. Do as much goofy crap as you can think of to just make a highlight reel.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely agree there because I think we saw a lot of highlight reels and excitement from the LCQ and the heats, but not quite as much from the race itself. But I think that will really wrap up our discussion on the Clash because, again, I think it was definitely great, and I think I'm glad that we went back to the Madhouse. But I think I definitely agree with you, Gavin, that I think it and the All Star have kind of started to serve the same purpose here recently.
Yeah, but I really want to talk about what is our next thing, and that's everything that's went on in the dirt world. We had
A lot.
we had a World Outlaws show. They kicked off their season, and then we had some more Lucas Oil late model racing at All Tech. And the notes I had after the first weekend of the World Outlaw shows was, man, RTJ hasn't finished in the top 20 yet. He hasn't. He missed one of the two A mains to start the season. I was like, man, he's just off. But wouldn't you know, I had to burn my notes and throw them away because he rattled off 2 wins in a row at All Tech. And then in the third race of the weekend, he was dominating the race and got past with just a few laps to go and ended up having a bad finish because of a wreck after some contact with Garrett Alberson. But still, I think RTJ's back. I think that I was an idiot for doubting him at all in the first place. I don't know why I thought that. It's one of the drivers you never doubt, never question after a few bad races is they'll get it figured out. But I didn't expect him to figure it out that much that fast.
Yeah, I mean, you and me got to watch the feature on Thursday after our race in Hypershift, a league that me and Gavin get to run together with some of our other good friends, and so we got to watch.
Race too.
Dude, I know, and
I think that's the first race we've watched together of anything.
It was, and it was honestly great to have you because, again, viewers, as a lot of y'all know, Gavin is the dirt man. He knows it all. He knows a lot more than me, and so he was kind of schooling me as we watched the race together. But man, RTJ, I mean, he worked himself from the mid pack and worked through that race and that 40 lap feature, and it was really awesome because he came down to the wire in that first one on Thursday.
Yeah, he drove from the mid pack and he really didn't make a whole lot of progress until the track started getting slick. The bottom, started getting choppy, and he was definitely the best of all the drivers as far as working the fence all the way around the top every lap. And he just started picking them off one car a lap, maybe 2 cars a lap. But he just was steady, working his way through the field. And a restart with 8 to go, he was in third and split the middle and got around Devin Moran and got to take home a $10,000 check as Max Blair and Dalton Wilson rounded out the podium. Devin Moran ended up with
it was impressive.
Tire. He was leading the race, and
I know
flat, but he did earn his redemption Saturday night with a win after RTJ and Garrett Alberson had contact in turn 4. And RTJ got sent close to the tire barrier down in turn 4. Got the car turned back up the track, but he overcorrected and just went straight into the wall.
Yeah, it was a great weekend for Lucas Oil late models, and I think that's what we wanted to see out of this second race, of the redemption for RTJ and Moran being able to come back so close on Thursday, gets that back on Saturday. I think it's going to be an exciting season.
I think it's going to be a great season for both series. I mean, when you go back another week, you go back to the Sunshine Nationals. It was on Dirt Vision, the World of Outlaws, their season opener. Ryan Gustin got his first win of the season. He passed Nick Hoffman and held off Jonathan Davenport on night 1 for his 11th career World of Outlaws win. He said, I had to redeem myself after having the fastest car and not winning at Golden Isles. And what's really funny is he did have the fastest car at Golden Isles, had the fastest car again at the Sunshine Nationals at Volusia, where a lot of drivers had engine trouble. And what's funny is he came across the line, car was steaming. I think he blew the car up after he won the race. I mean, there were engine troubles for including him, even though he won. Hudson O'Neal had his car catch on fire a little bit at the end of the B main, and then Daniel Hilsebate had troubles in the A main, all on that night at Sunshine Nationals.
Well, was that when Brian Shirley had his fire?
So that was actually in Tuesday's on the front Super Dirt Series race.
Dude.
More. But no, his car, that was pretty scary. I didn't know that it happened till obviously he was okay. Hunt the Front has their own streaming service that's different than Dirt Vision and different than Flow. And if you know anything about the streaming service landscape on the dirt world is you have to pick and choose which ones you buy.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get to watch the whole race, but I saw a few highlights on Twitter. And Brian Shirley caught on fire while driving, got it pulled over to the side. Car was burning so fast that he couldn't take his helmet off. And I don't know if you know anything about how low the ceiling or the roof is on a super late model. Is he had a hard time getting out of the car while he was on fire. The fire and rescue team did all they could. I mean, there was a really good statement I saw on Twitter from, I think, a former fire safety rescue guy to track. So he kind of explained the situation and explained this is actually, they did everything perfectly, as some fans were complaining on Twitter, as fans always do. But
Yeah.
no, Brian Shirley definitely had the scary moment of the last 2 weeks.
I was going to say the scary moment of the last 2 weeks, because I remember when you sent me that clip and I was like, oh my goodness, like that's one of the biggest fires I've seen in a race car in a long time. And so go ahead.
Oh, and it brought to light something I never realized is dirt super late models don't have a roof hatch to get out the top. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Obviously, sprint cars, you can bail out the side because there's an opening on the driver's side, but if you're in a dirt late model and you get stuck upside down or on fire, you're stuck in there until somebody drags you out.
Yeah, I mean it's scary. It really is. Especially, I get very scared of it because you see those cars go up on their roofs, and I mean there is such a tiny gap to be able to get out, and you see fire, and we always hope that either you're right side up when that fire happens, or safety crew is there very quickly, because it is definitely a bit more difficult to get out of those dirt super late models. But again, we're glad to see that everyone was okay in the front race, and it was a great race from Needmore for all those guys. And I think Hudson O'Neal got his first major win, right?
Yeah, first major win of the season. He was your 2023 Lucas Oil late model champion. And then last year in 2024 had an absolute whirlwind of a season where he drove for 3 different teams, including his own team. And so it's good to see him back in victory lane, ironically enough, with a team he doesn't race full time with.
Well, I mean, look, we saw a lot of great stuff from the dirt world. And look, I want to make a mention of it. I gotta pull up his name real quick, because I know, have we talked about sprint cars at all with what is it, World of Outlaws?
We have not really talked much about sprint cars yet. That's one thing that is getting ready to fire up this weekend, actually. So you can catch all that on Dirt Vision from down at Volusia.
Well, let me make a mention, because I actually now, and maybe we can have him on at some point. I actually now know a driver. It's Hunter Schurenberg. And do you know the name?
Yeah, I know the name. I think
Yeah.
this is his first full-time season in World Outlaws.
Yes. And so my girlfriend actually knows him personally, and like his whole family. Like, I actually met his dad when I was visiting my girlfriend over winter break.
Connections, as Scott always says.
Okay. This is a very new and recent development. I've never talked to him, but I now know his dad and these other people. So that's one thing that I'm excited about, and I'm definitely going to watch the sprint cars, because I want to see how he does, because I've heard from my girlfriend and her dad, a lot of time he is a fast driver, and he just has not been able to get the opportunity to run full time and things like that. And now it's on the table for him. And so I'm really excited to see what's going to come of that.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to see his Rookie of the Year campaign for World Outlaws, World Outlaw season coming up, and probably going to have a lot to say about it next time we meet.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all for dirt. And we'll get to my side of everything with asphalt short track. And there wasn't too much going on with us. So obviously we had the race at Kern with ARCA Menards. Trevor Huddleston was able to get that win, and he really fought for it there at the end. It was a great battle at the end. I know that you saw it, Gavin.
Oh yeah, it was a good battle for the win. I watched the end of it. Huddleston, I believe he passed it on the outside there at the very end. And I was just really impressed with him being able to win that. I know he won the ARCA West Championship last year, and he is a very solid driver, but just to see him continue his success from last year, I think the future is bright for him, especially when there's not that one car in the ARCA West that kind of stinks up the show, like can happen sometimes in the ARCA series.
I think he's definitely a driver to continue to watch in the ARCA West series. And there wasn't too much action that happened from there. We obviously saw Daniel Hemrick. He was he was in this race, but he was never able to lead. And he actually went out, I think it was, 3 laps to go?
Yeah, it was pretty early on, or pretty late going in the race that Daniel Hemrick had issues, and he kind of dropped from the front of the pack immediately when the race started. And I think everyone expected Daniel Hemrick because, he's ran a full season in the Cup Series. He's won a few Xfinity races. I mean, he's a good
Xfinity champion.
Yeah, Xfinity champion. I think he is this is weird to say, but a one-and-done winner champion.
He did. Look, that was what
the race that mattered.
I remember watching that and I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, that's how you can do it in this format and something. And he went out and did it. Because, I mean, he had I think he had 5 top 2s that season that he got his championship. I think it was what? I think 2021.
21 or 22.
It was when they were at Phoenix.
Yeah, I think it was. So it was 21, I believe.
I think so too.
I think it was the first year at Phoenix.
Then that would have been 2020.
It was 2020 or 2021.
One of the two, but I mean, it was awesome from him, but did not have the day wanting to go as he did at Kern. But then we also saw that you made a mention of this to me, that Venturini, they were on the list to send 3 cars over there. They didn't show up.
Yeah, no, Venturini did not show up. They were on the original entry list I saw on ARCA's website. And so I don't know if that was an actual entry list or if that was just the projected entries. But they had around between 20 and 25 cars scheduled to show up originally. And once it came down to race weekend, I think they only had around 15.
Yeah, they didn't have as many as they thought. And I looked everywhere for an article about Venturini and why they didn't show up, and I could not find a thing. So we're unsure why they did not come to the race. Maybe it was a little far for them or who knows, but they did not show up. And so that was everything with the ARCA West Series. Then we had the Cars Tour West Series, and really it was the story of Kevin Harvick and Dawson Sutton. Kevin Harvick obviously driving for his KHI car, now in conjunction with Rackley War. And so obviously Dawson Sutton, a Rackley War driver. And so, I mean, the race was the tale of them two racing each other.
I think it's funny because I think I mentioned what some people have said about Dawson Sutton in the past last week, and then he goes out and wins against Kevin Harvick in a one-on-one situation. So now I'm eating my words.
Yeah, I know. Look, I think, and again, we're going to have to see how it goes here for Sutton in the Truck Series here.
A lot of potential, though.
Yeah, definitely a lot of potential. And one of those drivers that has definitely, found his way through, and I think he's definitely had some help, but I think he's one of those drivers that we're going to have to see, is there raw talent there, or has it been other things that have helped him along the way? Again, the modern form of motorsport, you need money, and we're not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just the way racing is in today's day and age. You got to have money, and there's definitely guys out there that have it and some that don't. We're just excited to see if Sutton continues to rise to form, because he has done very well here in a lot of his performances late on in the Truck Series last year when he took over the number 25, and then in his super late model like we've seen over the past year.
Yeah, I have no doubt in Dawson Sutton's talent. I'm just interested to see if he's going to be able to put it together over the course of a whole season against drivers in the Truck Series they're not the best of the best, like the Cup Series, but they're getting there. And he's really racing against 30, I would consider, elite drivers across motorsports.
Yeah. Well, and I think he's definitely driving against a lot of those drivers that are definitely fast. And so we'll have to see if he can hold that, really. And he won the race. I mean, he battled with Kevin Harvick, and I know a lot of people were probably rooting for Harvick. I know I was, because obviously I want to see him win. Plus, I love them getting to run the super late models. This is something, I wish the ASA was able. I want the ASA to continue to grow, because obviously I love late model stocks, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait for when we get to New River All-American Speedway on March 1st for the start of the Cars Tour, and I love them, but I also love the super late model. I mean, it's just another style of car to be able to drive. And I just wish that ASA got as much view as the Cars Tour, because the racing is always hot.
It is. What little bit of super late model racing I've watched, I'm really impressed with the discipline. They're a little harder to drive than a late model, I would assume. And from what I've raced on iRacing, which, isn't a lot, I think you've seen my lack of talent in a super late model before.
Yeah, I know that. Well, when it comes to you and me, I'm definitely a little bit better in the super, and it's my favorite car. Like, it's the one. My goal, obviously, I told a lot of y'all viewers last week, I want to be a full-time announcer with racing. I want to make it all the way to the top, hopefully, and I'm gonna chase my dreams. I don't care how ridiculous they may sound, but I also have a hobby for wanting to race, and I want to race super late models someday just for fun. And so one thing I want to mention last before we move on to our interview with Austin Beers is, we actually had some more super late model race happen this weekend back at Cordele, and it was off-brand race. It was Superfest. It was their first race, and Bubba Pollard dominated. I mean, he killed it. I don't know if you saw anything about this, Gavin, but his dominance at Cordele, it is unstoppable.
No, I mean, Bubba Pollard, I saw that he won. I wasn't surprised at all. I saw the picture of Bubba Pollard in Victory Lane, and my first thought was, Bubba Pollard does it again.
Yeah, he does it again. And talking about Pollard doing it again, Gavin and I want to introduce a new quick segment. It's called Bonehead of the Week. And big shout out to Drew King, one of our good friends. He actually helped us come up with this. And Gavin, explain to the viewers and listeners what Bonehead of the Week will be.
So Bonehead of the Week, if you haven't figured it out, it's kind of the moment from the last 2 weeks, actually, that left me and Scott, or me or Scott, just shaking our heads and thinking, what the hell were you thinking? Or just for anybody. And it can be anything from someone in a midget to someone in the Cup Series. It can be F1, or it can be a cameraman making a bad shot during a race. It can be anything. And I'm going to go with my Bonehead of the Week. We talked about it a little bit in our Clash coverage. I'm going to go with Ty Gibbs and him just absolutely launching himself into Justin Haley.
Yeah, I think mine, I'm going to go with Justin Haley, because, he was trying to pick a fight with Kyle Busch. He was roughing everybody up, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, give up. And I was like, oh my goodness. But we also, with our Bonehead of the Week segment, we also have the Badass Move of the Week, and I'm really excited about it because mine was about Bubba Pollard and his extreme dominance at Cordele with Superfest.
Yeah, mine, I'm just going to go with RTJ dominating the weekend at All Tech. He won 2 of the races, led the most laps in the third one of the weekend. And it's funny because, like I said, I had a whole segment devoted to what is wrong with RTJ this year. And then he goes out and pretty much makes me throw away half my notes for this episode.
Well, I know that that one made you a little upset, but I know it made you more happy than it did upset. And with that, we're going to get Austin Beers in here. And Gavin, I'm going to let you take this one away.
All right, Austin, you on here with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. So, Austin Beers, you actually had a pretty interesting last few weeks to end the offseason. You got to go down to Daytona and test an ARCA car for the preseason ARCA testing. How was that?
Oh, it was really cool. Really special for, someone like me who doesn't really, have the funding as to, think he'll ever make it to that point. To be selected by Whelen to be able to go there and run that car for fast track racing and be able to just test on a track that is so legendary with, people like Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt, Dale Jr., just all those people that were able to, race on that racetrack and win on that racetrack. And for me to be out there, just, who I believe, like a small town kid, just getting to, run at just such a prestigious racetrack, it meant a lot. It was a really cool experience. We got to go through all of the suites and stuff. We were in the France suite, which, that's bigger than most New York City apartments. So it was pretty cool to be in there. We got to go on top of the spotter stand and, just tour the whole facility. And then we got to talk to Mike Helton. But then just being on the racetrack, it was just it was pretty outstanding to go there and run there.
Yeah, and my next question, I'm gonna kind of follow up with that is that your first experience in a stock car?
Yeah, that's my first time, other than like when I started racing a 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
That's my first time not being able to see the front tires, so it was kind of felt different for me for a while there. I had to get used to it and get my bearings, but yeah, first time in a stock car.
Yeah, and a lot of legendary drivers down there. As you were talking about, Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart, you actually got to test with Helio Castroneves while he was down there. How was that? And did you get any chance to talk to him or, get to meet him and draft with him on the track at all?
So unfortunately, I was day 2, and most teams went home on Thursday because they were getting an inch of snow in Charlotte, so that's a lot for them in North Carolina. So most of the teams went home. Most of the big name guys went home. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to, see or meet any of those guys. So I was kind of the day 2, about 12 cars there. Didn't really get into a draft, so to say. I got behind somebody on my last lap of the test, and they immediately pulled off. So I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, it was still really cool to just be a part of that whole thing, and I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, and is there any chance at all in the future that we might see you in an ARCA car again, or was this just kind of a really cool opportunity?
It was definitely a really cool opportunity. Unless we would get funding together, maybe I can run like a short track for a lower budget team one day. I'm approved for all that stuff now with being able to do the test at Daytona and not really doing anything dumb. That's how you get on the approved drivers list. You just show that you can make it around Daytona in the stock car. But yeah, I would just need to get some funding together, and that's really how racing goes nowadays. You got to have the funding to do it.
Yeah, so just to go back to your roots, like you said, you like being able to see the wheels and not the fenders. How was the start of your career in racing? And can you kind of tell us how you got from the start of your career to where you're at today, running full time in the Whelen Tour and a lot of races in the Smart Tour as well?
Yeah, I started out in quarter midgets locally, and then ran a 4-cylinder locally and won a championship at I was age 14. And then a year after that, I moved into a Sportsman Modified, which is a 602 crate engine with skinny tires. And I was able to pick up the inaugural championship at my home track, Mahoning Valley Speedway. A year later, I moved up into an SK type modified, which is just a little bit more power than the 602s, and was able to pick up a championship at Evergreen Speedway in their sportsman division, along with third in their tour type modified division. And I finished 5th on the Race of Champions 250 that year with the SK type engine, and that's a full-blown tour mod race. So that was pretty cool to do that. The year after that, I got into the tour type modified with the Lang Racing for the full Race of Champions series, and that was in 2020, so we didn't really get to race that much. I was able to get second in points there and finish third at the Race of Champions 250. And then halfway through the 2021 season, Mike Murphy approached me and asked me to run his Whelen Modified Tour car. They were looking to make a change, and I got to run the last 4 races, and I got them their first top 10 of the season that year, and that blossomed into a full-time seat in that car for the years to come. In 2021 as well, I won the Race of Champions series. I was the series champion, the youngest to ever do that. And fast forward, we won the Rookie of the Year in 2022 with Mike Murphy and KLM Motorsports on the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. And then 2023, I was able to get my first tour win, which was at Richmond. And we got our second win at Lancaster, and I won some ROC races at Chemung. And then last year, we were able to pick up another win at Lancaster for their tour race. And we finished third in points in 2023 and fourth last year, and we're looking to make a run for the championship this year.
Yeah, and I really think at this point, you've built so much momentum in the last 2 years that I think you're just as much of a favorite now as Silk and Bonsignor this year, just with the experience that you've gained, and now you have full momentum behind you, just like those two great multi-time champions.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely hard to come into the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, and start to win races like we did. It's more of like a grizzled veteran type of series. So for someone young to come in, it's definitely a hard stepping stone. You gotta earn your respect early, and I believe that's how I was able to start off with those guys. And this year I don't think Silk's running the full year. I won't believe it honestly until their trailer is not there for that race. So we'll see. But Justin's a great competitor. He's obviously him, Ryan Stone, that whole Ken Massa team. They're really good. They're on their A game all the time. And I'm good friends with Justin. I believe he's kind of one of my mentors. He helps me out a lot. So he helped me out with the ARCA test really because he did it the year prior. He was the one selected, which then blossomed into him running the ARCA race. And then now he's running for Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity for, I believe, 9 races this year. So, it's definitely hard for someone young to get into the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour and become a winner or, someone that runs in the top 5 most weeks. And KLM Motorsports puts a great car behind me. There's just a great team, really fast on pit road, very reliable race cars, and they put me in the best spot I can. So it just comes down to, race strategy and experience, really.
Yeah, and to go on top of you talking about racing for the same team now you're in your 4th season with them, and so why when you go down to New Smyrna here in a coming weekend, why run for 2 different teams in the tour mods, or why run for your regular team during the Whelen Tour race and then hop in a different car just for the tour mod race?
So the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour is it's a huge commitment. A lot of traveling. You'll have all those guys take days off of work. We have, I think, 3 midweek shows, which for the tour, that's honestly not too bad. But you got to realize that people take a lot of time off of work for this stuff, and it's a big effort by everybody. So the KLM Motorsports team, we only do tour races, and then I'm able to run for the Jensen team for the week-long show, which is 5 races and 5 nights. Down in New Smyrna. So it's just a big commitment for the whole year. So we only do the tour modified races for NASCAR when we run the 64. So that's the reason of 2 different teams.
Yeah, and I think Scott has a few things to talk about, speaking of commitments, because what did the Whelen Modified Tour actually commit to give back to their teams?
Yeah, well, I mean, Austin, I know you've probably heard the news, but obviously a few weeks ago they announced it, the Whelen Modified Tour, they increased their purse payout at the end of the year, a total of $412,000. That's a 250% increase from last season, and that came from a contract extension with Whelen Engineering. But what does that mean to a guy like you, obviously finishing 3rd in the standings 2 years ago and 4th last year? What does that mean to you this year with that possibility of that increase?
Yeah, it's huge. Whelen made a huge commitment to the series like they have done before. Post-COVID, it's been tough to get cars, unfortunately, with, just how the world has become now with everything being so expensive and such. So for Whelen to make such a huge commitment to the series like they have before, it means a lot for not only our team, but every team that runs, whether it's, the full-time teams or someone that's going to run part-time. I mean, I believe it's about $7,000 point payout, even the 20th in points. So that's huge for maybe the teams that won't get to all of them. But, Whelen and Mayhew and all the sponsors, Hoosier, obviously, that come on board. And I believe for New Smyrna, the payout's huge just for that one race with all the, posted awards and such. They increased all the payouts for, the minimum to start the race is now $2,500 for every single race. So it's just huge for teams to know that, they'll be close to breaking even on a bad day. And that's what really, keeps people from not coming to these races is, obviously the tire bill is a bit much because of how many tires we have to take for these races. So just to know that you have a chance to be able to either break even or even come out positive. It's huge for bringing teams that aren't full-time into the races.
Yeah, I know that that's definitely huge for y'all, and I'm really excited to see that as this year goes on. Once Gavin told me that we were going to have you on here for this second episode, I got to follow you and look at a little bit of your past and everything. And first of all, I got to say, I love the look of that 64 car. I mean, it is a beautiful modified, and I definitely one of my favorite paint schemes that I think I've ever seen, and I got to see it quickly. But you just mentioned New Smyrna, and that is what? I mean, this weekend, that's 5 days away, this Saturday. And talk to me about that race, season opener. Talk to me about your expectations and what you've been doing in preparation.
Obviously iRacing is actually a big tool. I used it even though the ARCA cars really aren't updated for Daytona, I kind of used it to go down there before I went, just for visual learning. And but New Smyrna is it's a pretty badass racetrack, if I'm honest. Hasn't been repaved in a while, and it's not a lot of grip, but really, really fast speeds. I'm expecting to go down there and run really well. Our team did a lot of, let's say, research over the off season on what we can do to improve our program. And I think Sly and Ron, they did a great job of just putting the hours in and the work in. And everybody on the team, they just finished their last thing of pit practice this weekend. So I'm excited to get down there. We've had a lot of success in the past. Maybe our finishes don't see it, but I think we were leading with 8 to go last year on an alternate pit strategy because our car just wasn't right. But we still came out with a 6th place finish. And the year prior, I believe we led like 75 laps and ended up finishing 8th due to just something out of our control. So I'm excited to get down there. We have a lot of speed. We started outside pole last year, and I think we can go down there, get the pole, hopefully control the race, and just have the right strategy and hopefully win it.
Yeah, I think me and Gavin are definitely excited about that in this season opener for the Whelen Modified Tour. And I know that I'm definitely a bit better on the super late models than I am in the modifieds in iRacing. I have tried the modified so many times, and oh my goodness, it is so difficult. It's so different to drive. I think I was doing one at Lanier the other night, and it did not go well. And so it's really cool to get to watch you guys out there, especially in the sim, but even more in real life, go out and handle a car like that modified. My last question for you, what are your goals for 2025 in this season in the Whelen Modified Tour and just in racing in general? What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, so this year I got a pretty packed schedule. As last year I ran 54 races with in between the modified tour, and I was running full time at Stafford in their SK division. This year I won't be able to do any SK racing at Stafford, but the 3 kind of main series in the Northeast are the Race Champions Modified Tour, the Tri-Track Modified Series, and obviously the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. And right now, none of their schedules conflict. So I'll be running all 3 of them full time as of now. So hopefully, we can finish top 5 in points in all of them. Obviously, it's a big commitment, but I have great people behind me in all 3 series. I'll be running the 179 full time. That's the car I'm running for the weekend in New Smyrna with the Jensens. That'll be full time on the Tri-Track series, and I'll be in about 3 or 4 cars in the Race of Champions Modified series that mainly come out of our race shop here in Pennsylvania, and then obviously with the 64. The KLM Motorsports for the Whelen Modified Tour. But, I think obviously it was kind of a step back for us last year, not on paper, but just, the way how we felt the season went on the Whelen Modified Tour with the 64. So I'm thinking, hopefully we can get a couple wins this year and maybe battle Justin and Emmerling for the points championship. We just got to be more consistent. It's really hard. A tour is very hard to run top 5 every week, and seems like the 51 and the 1 and the 16 of Ron Silk always do it. So just gotta minimize our mistakes. But last year I only got 1 win in all those races, so I'm always hard on myself about stuff like that. I don't really need anybody to tell me. I need anybody to tell me that you run 54 races, you should win more than 1. I know that. So I'm looking to win more races this year. Just be more consistent. I had a lot of top 5s, a lot of top 10s. I finished top 10 every race on the Whelen Modified Tour except the one I got wrecked in at Richmond. So just be consistent and get more wins.
Yeah, well, look, I'm excited to watch it, and I know that I only just got to meet you, but man, it was so awesome to have you here, first of all, and I'm excited to see what you have for us and for this season. Gavin, you got anything else?
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Austin. It was funny, right when Scott asked me to do this, I think you were the first person I was like, man, we need to get Austin on here. When Scott kind of came to us about, talked to me about having these young drivers on here, I was like, I know just the guy.
That's cool. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's cool what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
we appreciate you, Austin, and we hope you have a great night, and we're excited to get to see you this weekend. Good luck this weekend, and good luck in this season. We'll be keeping up with you, man.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
All right, see
Well,
you.
that was Austin Beers, and man, what an honor and a pleasure it was to have him here tonight. And we'll go into our last two segments of the night. And we saw a week ago the Daytona 24 hours happen, and there was some controversy that we had, Gavin. We saw Tommy Milner get into it with a few BMWs, Augusto Farfus, and let's just say some drama ensued because Tommy Milner was battling for the lead with the number one BMW, but the 48, driven by Augusto Farfus, was a lap down and was blocking Tommy Milner, and he actually got a warning from race control, but he would not get out of the way, and Tommy was absolutely fed up with it. We saw the one continue to catch up, and then near into the international horseshoe, we saw big contact between that of the 1 and the 4. And then we saw a now new iconic photo as the 48 BMW of Augusto Farfus was coming to pit lane to serve that penalty for blocking. We got the bird out the window from Tommy Milner and his Corvette, and what an iconic photo it is.
Yeah, I've been seeing that picture on t-shirts, memes. Honestly, I've already seen it as people's profile pictures on Twitter. So you know something is a great moment when it's multiple people's profile picture. But no, when I watched that moment, I was like, man, this is honestly a moment that's below the 24 hours of Daytona. You know, you can do that on an exhibition race or at a local track. You don't do that on one of the biggest stages in the world. That's, to me, kind of an embarrassing moment. But I don't think it's that big of a deal because it gets eyes on the sport. But at the same time, I don't know if it gets the right eyes on the sport.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with you. I definitely thought it was a little out of the way for IMSA. I don't think that's how they like to race. So I thought it was really interesting to see that going on, and I can understand Tommy Milner's frustration with it because that's something they really don't see in IMSA. Drivers don't drive like that, and he's raced against Augusto Farfus for he's known him for 15 years, and he said, I've raced with him for 15 years. He's always been fair to me on track. He said he was certain it was him following orders, so it might have been something within the team at BMW, but it was really an interesting play. Milner hopes that if this continues from BMW, that IMSA will intervene.
I don't think they have any choice but to intervene if it gets any more than what it already was. I mean, we watched the fiasco of Martinsville in the cutoff race last year with everything Chevrolet and Toyota were doing at the end of that race. And so many teams were manipulating the race that NASCAR finally just threw their hands up and basically said, we give up. IMSA can't be put in that situation. They have to put their foot down before something bad starts. And I know that team orders are a thing, and blocking a car to get your teammate closer to them, yeah, that's fine. But when you intentionally just wreck a car that your teammate is competing with, that's not right. And I mean, IMSA would not even be out of line to suspend BMW for a race, even, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it'll get that far. I think BMW probably had some conversations running up to the next race for IMSA, but that was probably a little bit more on the down low. Then we saw Connor Zilic, SVG, and Scott McLaughlin in their GTD Pro car, their Corvette. They were having a great night into the night. SVG was battling for the second position, but then we saw they just did not have the 24 hours that they wanted.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure if that comes to blame on any single driver. You know, it's a 24-hour race. I watched the middle 12 hours probably. I think I went to bed around 1:30 that morning, and when I went to bed, I think SVG was in the car, and he was absolutely clicking off just wicked fast lap times. I think he was the fastest GTD car on the track the whole time I was watching. I go to bed and they're battling for second. I wake up to go to church the next morning and I look and they're barely in the top 10. And I don't know what happened. I'm interested to see what happened because there wasn't an accident or incident even to put them back that far. I just wonder if it was something with the car and the speed, or if it was maybe one of the drivers, the car suited better, and when somebody else got in it, it didn't suit them. I don't know. That's what goes on these 24-hour races. So much of the early morning and night, you just don't really know. Even with all the updates on social media, there's just so much to sort through. I'm not sure if it was something outside of the team that happened to them, something internally, or just a racing. They went out and got ninth, which is very respectable. It's just, to me, when you have SVG, Scott McLaughlin, and Connor Zilic, anything short of a win is a failure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they definitely gave it their all. I know I saw in the late 2 hours, Zilic was battling. He was up in the top 5, and then he spun out into turn number 1, and that put him back, and then he just was not able to regain those spots. So I know that was one mistake that I got to see, but I definitely know they wanted more from that experience. We saw Penske Porsche win overall. The 7 car goes back-to-back with Felipe Nasser bringing it home both times in the past 2 years. And what a drive it was for Nasser. I mean, back-to-back wins. He was actually battling with the number 6 Penske, which I believe Campbell was driving that car near the end. And they were actually teammates last year. They also battled with the number 60 BMW, but eventually overall that 7 car really dominated in the end.
Yeah, I mean, Roger Penske and that entire organization, right now, they're winning everything they're in. Everything that they touch turns to gold. Right now, they're the staple of excellence in all of motorsports. I mean, I would argue to put them above Red Bull across all of racing right now at this very moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are absolutely great, and they really deserve that win. I mean, Roger Penske, we know it, you and me both, extremely big Penske fans in our playbook, and so he definitely knows what is going on in all the realms of motorsport. And speaking of Penske, let's get our preview in for the Daytona 500. This is our last segment of the evening here for episode number 2 of the B-Main. And that's coming up in 2 weeks now. And Gavin, I know you and me are extremely excited for NASCAR to be back.
I mean, I can't describe how excited I get these last 2 weeks leading up to the Daytona 500 every year, especially now since there's that weird break between the Clash and the Daytona 500, especially it's for the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl can have the big TV window. I understand that. I get it. It makes perfect sense. But you look at the Daytona 500, especially in recent years, the winners can be anybody. And I don't know if that adds to it or takes away from it, but the winners in the last handful of years, it's been so unpredictable. We've seen great drivers win. We've seen underdogs win. We've seen everybody in the middle win, pretty much except for Kyle Busch at this point. But I think, can he do it in his 20th attempt? Can Kyle Busch win? That's one of the big things I'm looking at. But to me, the most interesting thing, we have one of the biggest entry lists we've seen in years going into the Daytona 500. We're sending 4 cars home that aren't making it into the show instead of just 1 or maybe even 2. And when you look at the 8 cars that are open cars, these are not bad drivers at all. I mean, you have Helio Castroneves, who is one of the best drivers ever. Justin Allgaier coming off of an Xfinity championship. Martin Truex Jr., 4 years away from being eligible for the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and you know he's going to get in. Chandler Smith, in my opinion, the most cup-ready prospect in NASCAR. Anthony Alfredo, super speedway specialist, I would say, in the Cup Series. Jimmy Johnson is Jimmy Johnson. I mean, that's all we have to say about that. And then you have BJ McLeod, who is very experienced and not a driver you sleep on. And that's the same thing with JJ Yaley. Is how are we going to send 4 of these guys home?
Yeah, I don't know, and that's one thing that I'm really excited to see, and one thing I'm really excited about, that we have this big entry list, because we're going to see these qualifying and everybody go on with the heat races and the duels, and we're going to see people go home. And I think it's something that we're going to get to battle and watch. I think it's like we watch with the heat races. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, we're watching these two drivers fight for it. No, we're going to be watching, you know, in two of the duels, 4 drivers go at it. And so I'm really excited about that, and I'm honestly really interested to see who's going to make it, because like you said, this is not an entry list of unknowns. I mean, this is an entry list of a lot of guys that are extremely talented. I mean, Helio Castroneves, we all know him from IndyCar. Obviously, Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion. Martin Truex Jr., a NASCAR champion. Justin Allgaier, an Xfinity champion. Chandler Smith, very, very fast, top 8 in last year's NASCAR Xfinity points, running in that number 66. Anthony Alfredo, another fast driver, and obviously BJ McLeod and JJ Yeley. Who do you think, who are your 4 picks to make it in?
Well, we know Castroneves is going to get in. He has this, I called it the world-class driver provisional. I'm not sure what NASCAR actually ended up calling it. And if he doesn't make it, there's going to be a 41-car field, which I don't know what I think, because if Jimmy Johnson's not a world-class driver, why have the provisional?
Yeah, we could get into that debate all day long.
But I don't know if we're going to have time for that. So
we don't.
If I'm going to predict the 4, I'm just going to include Helio Castroneves in the 4. I think Helio makes it. I'm going to go Allgaier and Truex making it. And for the last spot, I think Anthony Alfredo's going to make it. I hate to say this out loud, but I think Jimmy Johnson's going to go home. Since he's been driving that 84 car in his return to NASCAR in this Gen 7 car, he just hasn't been the same. I only think he has 1 finish inside the top 30, and I just don't even know if it's going to work out, even on a super speedway like Daytona.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. You know, if we're talking about strictly the facts, I think those top 4 that we have, Helio Castroneves, Justin Allgaier, Martin Truex Jr., and for me, I would say Chandler Smith. I think Anthony Alfredo has a great bid, but I think a good portion of this, obviously a lot of these drivers have a lot of skill, but what we know about super speedway racing is you could have all the skill in the world, but if you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time, your night could be done just like that. And so I think it's really up in the air. I think it could be any of them, but I think there are some that are definitely better suited than others.
And now this is going to be the time where Jimmy Johnson proves both of us wrong and goes out and wins the Daytona 500.
Oh my gosh, bro. We'd have to come back, tails tucked between our legs, and be like, so guys, for episode 3, why don't you just stop thinking about our opinions? Oh my God.
Junior's already proved me wrong. Dawson Sutton's already proved me wrong this year, so I know I'm going to be eating my words all season.
Look, I hope I'm not, but look, I'm not always right. I'm not even close to always right. My girlfriend will tell you that. Our producer, DJ Lyon, will tell you that. But it's been a pleasure to be here. And guys, I think that's going to be all our stuff for episode number 2 of the B-Main. And I know, Gavin, I love to do this every 2 weeks, and it's something I look forward to. You and me texting all the time long, being like, okay, well, what do we find in this? And it's obviously a pleasure to have DJ Lyon here producing for us. And we hope that later on he'll be back. I know that I can't pay him what he deserves right now. And so hopefully we can get some sponsors and get DJ back. If you are looking to sponsor us, I know, again, we're still a young podcast, but email us at thebmainpodcast2024 at gmail.com, and it'll be in our bios on YouTube, X, let's see, X is Twitter, Spotify, all of the jazz. You can find us anywhere. But email us if you would like to sponsor us, and we can work out a deal for sure. But I think we're going to have a lot of stuff upcoming. Obviously, we've got Daytona 500. We've got ASA's opening week race at New Smyrna, as well as the Whelen Modified Tour. And I know we got a lot of stuff on the dirt side, Gavin, but I think that's going to do it for us. But let me know what we got previewing.
Yeah, the USAC Sprint Car Series and the World of Outlaws are both starting their season here in the next couple weeks. And then you can continue the action across all other dirt series. You can catch them on Flow, Dirt Vision, and then wherever else, depending on the series. Best thing to do, just look it up online. It's really kind of confusing a lot of times with all these dirt series, where what's airing. I know it's a lot, but it's so worth going and taking the time to watch all of these races. It's so fun. It is really made the last, giving me something to do, now that I'm graduated from college. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Like Scott said, if you want to sponsor us, email us, get a hold of us any way you can. Thank you for watching. This was the B Main. We'll be back in 2 weeks.